see a avenue where he's maybe not overly productive, and you kind of struggle to put him into your game plan because I think unless he dominates as a penetrator,
You kind of see some Aaron Donald though,
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Draft Vogel.
With the first pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the first pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, with the first pick in the 2023 NFL Draft.
The sickest NFL draft show. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome into the Sick Podcast with Draft Vogel. John Vogel, Justen Gamble, Mark Jarvis is in Indianapolis right now. We're at home and sick. I'm sick. How are you, Justin?
My back hurts because I'm old, and I played hockey
And
too
you
much this week
hockey.
already. Yeah.
Oh,
but other than that, a lot lately. But I'm excited for the combine to start. I'm really anxious for that. So we'll have a lot more content. We'll have a lot to talk about soon. So that's cool.
Combine starting up tonight,
Yes.
this afternoon, getting underway, getting things in. And interviews have already started rolling out. Media day started for the players on Wednesday. Coaches and GMs came through on Tuesday, and I think there were a few that swung through on Wednesday as well. But so now everything is starting to get generated. Everything's starting to build up with the combine and all that. So really excited about that. Now, Gam, we kind of wanted to get into some different stuff here, because we don't really have, I don't think, the opportunity to right now to be looking at how we're looking at different positions like we've done in the past. We're right in the middle of draft season, and so we kind of have to look at ahead to this class and start to kind of make our assessments, put that stuff out there. I've been grinding through the tape the last week. And just trying to get grades done, like offensive and defensive lines and maybe some, players, quarterbacks really, but players that I don't need the athletic testing as much, like I'm not as concerned about it.
Yeah.
And you can kind of gauge and get a good feel for where a guy's going to test. So those types of grades. And
this is that point where you want to be ready for everything to be done except for the combine stuff. Once you throw that into your grade, you want to be prepared for it. That way you're not like, oh, I saw him test this, I saw him do this, but I'm kind of not finished with tape. I'm not finished with it. You want to get, you want to be as prepared as possible at this point because things are about to change. Hopefully, for the better for most of these guys. Hopefully we don't see a ton of flops and dudes we got to drop down our boards because I hate doing that anyway. You want to trust the tape and trust your eyes, but yeah, this is hopefully we can solidify as much as possible right now.
Oh, and I'll tell you too, like when you're doing, this, you get past the combine and now we've got, the Big 12 pro day that'll essentially be another combine. And you got all the other pro days on top of all that coming up. Like, yeah, it's going to get wild.
Weird. Yeah.
Fast. But you had a really good idea. Go ahead and tell people what we're going to kind of get into a little bit today.
Well, so one of my buddies, we talk, football every day as much as we can. And we always bounce ideas and players off each other. But we were looking at like past drafts and some of the current top players in the NFL because we were talking about, look at how, well, first he asked me a question like, who's the best safety in the NFL? What even is a true safety anymore? Do we have a lot of those? Who are the best players at their positions in the NFL? And what makes them that way? And then we're looking around like a lot of these guys weren't the first player taken at their position in their draft year. Some of them are second or third round, or some of them are late, so we're asking like what makes a great NFL player? And then he dropped a question on me. Who are some players from this current class that you could see ending up a top player at their position in the NFL? And the keyword unexpected, because I think a lot of these guys that are first rounders that we know are going to be first rounders are like, well, we expect him to be great. We expect him to be great. And that's like the whole point is they're going to go high because we give them high grades. We think they're going to translate to great players. But you have to look back. I mean, I was looking, Devontae Adams, he was a second rounder. He went after a lot of dudes that he's far more successful than, far better than. David Bakhtiari, I think the 2013 NFL draft, 4th round pick, became arguably the best left tackle of his maybe era. I mean, he's in there with a lot of quality guys at his time, but like that draft class, he went behind, I think the only two guys maybe you could argue that were better are Taron Armstead, Lane Johnson. But that was, I think, was that the Eric Fisher year? That was Jake Matthews. Yeah, he went behind a ton of dudes that he's clearly better than. And so I think we were trying to figure out, is there some guys in this class that we can kind of forecast to say, he has the ability to be extremely productive, extremely good down the road that, maybe we're not overly as high on as right now as we either should be or that we can be, because, it's a height, weight, speed auction. We always say that's a cattle auction. You can't take guys too high. You don't want to overpay. It's not a smart move as a franchise, but who are the guys that are not going to be overpaid for, maybe that can develop into the top players at their position?
It's funny because when you pose the question to me, one of the things that you kind of have to think about is upside, right? Potential. Right. Who's got that raw, ability that kind of needs to finesse it. And, you think about a guy that was drafted, that's become one of the best defensive ends in the country. He's a 4th-round pick. That's Max Crosby. And when he came out of Eastern Washington, there wasn't a lot of hype around him. There wasn't, this whole, follow train of, Max Crosby stands and da-da-da. Like,
right.
Sort of like tradesy, long, athletic defensive end that the Raiders are like, fuck it. Let's take a pick. Let's take a swinger on it. See if he hits.
Yeah.
They end up one of the best defensive ends in the country. Right. And so, you gotta have to think about guys that they have that raw ability, but because of maybe the situation that they're in, maybe I'm trying to think of the best way to say it. The school that they're at.
Yeah, a lot of it's like opportunities.
Right. They're not getting that kind of attention. The first guy comes to my head that I kind of think about, and it's kind of funny because I think he very well may go first round, but that may be me going, I see too much. I see a lot of potential here. A lot of other projections have him, closer to the bottom of the second, early third.
Oh, now I'm curious.
Corley.
Okay, never mind. I'm not that curious. I knew
Malachi Corley, man. I mean, Malachi is such a gifted run after catch prospect. Where he becomes this running back in the open field. He takes off. He's got great field vision. But then everybody was kind of shitting on him because you ran bubble screens 70% of the time or whatever that number was. I didn't chart it. So, but yeah, he ran a lot of bubble screens in that, Western Kentucky offense. So he goes to Senior Bowl and shows that he can kind of run some routes. And one of the things that's really key at that position is not selling, your direction. One of the things I've kind of noticed where I've missed on receivers in the past has been thinking that I have to see a guy throw his shoulders all over the place, duck his head, throw it different ways, get that defensive back to bite, just be really convincing about it. And when you go look at all the great route runners in the league, nobody really does that. They're just so good through their breaks. They're smooth. They don't show the defensive back where they're going. They don't even show the defensive back they're cutting because they're already running so low to the ground that by the time they hit their break, they don't have to drop their hips. They don't have to throw their shoulders. They don't have to throw their head. They're already at the point where they can just take those 2 steps, explode off that third, get into that break, and they're gone. This is separation instantly. And I think Corley showed that at the Senior Bowl. When you look at just, the mentality that he has, we had the opportunity to talk about him a little bit with Austin on the podcast, his quarterback at Western Kentucky. And he said he's the best teammate he ever had. Excuse me. Like, he just loves football and he's constantly trying to pick up on it. So Malachi Corley feels like he could be one of the top, if not the top receiver in the league at some point of his career, to me.
I think I don't think that highly of him, I guess, but I do understand that if he gets a chance to be super productive, he could be super productive because he's a run after the catch specialist. He's physical. I think he does have enough. I don't want to say he's a home run hitter. or a vertical threat, but I think you're looking at a guy that's probably around Deebo Samuel's 40 time, like 4.49 or something.
Yeah.
And that's enough speed.
Look at how those two measure, Gam.
Yeah.
Those two,
I mean, it's like
their measurables are almost identical.
And I will say, I think he's a better pure receiver and pass catcher and separator than Deebo. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think people always say, like, don't throw lofty comps around. I will say that I think he can be better than Deebo.
And where's Deebo right now? Like, what are we?
And Deebo's a great player. Like,
is he top 10? Is he top 5? Like,
where is he? I don't think Deebo's top 10 to me, because again, we saw last playoffs that you kind of got to manufacture touches for him. He's not a guy that you can say, go run routes, go be productive anywhere. That's not who he is.
That's fair.
That's not who he is. It's just not, so you do have to manufacture some production for Deebo. Corley probably won't be dynamic enough, in my opinion, to be a top 5, top 10 receiver. But I think you're looking at a guy that's probably top 20 every single year. And he's probably going to, he could finish top 5, top 10 in production for sure. So, I mean, and if that's the case, then yeah, he could sneak into the back few picks of that first round, because that's a player that a lot of teams could use. So
I'm just saying, I mean, Kansas City at 32 makes all the sense in the world. I know you hate that. There's a Colorado native, but
if I was a Bronco fan, I'd hate it. Luckily, I don't have any cares in the world about that team. So, but yeah, I mean, funny you bring up a receiver first, because I had a few names written down myself. Well, two names that stood out to me are Ladd McConkey and Roman Wilson. McConkey from Georgia, Roman Wilson from Michigan. Roman Wilson is just that guy that we talk that, like, you bring up opportunities, and he didn't get a lot of opportunities because they don't throw the ball much. And we talked about this on the McCarthy episode. Like, they just don't throw the ball much. And when they do, it's, 3rd and 3, we needed this one play. All right, back to run the ball. But I think this kid's going to run low 4.3s possibly. He tracks it so well, catches the ball effortlessly with his hand. I mean, he can catch, not break stride, continue upfield, continue across the field. I think he's a lot better pure receiver than we ever got to see at Michigan. And someone that, if you stick him as your number 2, I don't want to say he's Brandon Cooks, but there's some Brandon Cooks to this kid's game where the pure speed and the pure field stretching ability is pretty elite if you let him actually get going. Michigan didn't do that. Ladd McConkey, he's getting those Antonio Brown comparisons now, which is crazy, because a while ago, I don't know if it was you and me or me and Ruckus, my buddy on Twitter, Sports Ruckus, who I used to do the podcast with.
It was Ruckus.
Okay, because we were talking, and he goes, "Does he remind you of Antonio Brown?" And I'm like, "Funny you say that," because I think, yeah, he's white, so we're all like, Cooper Kupp and the Green Bay guy, whatever. And it's like, yeah, I don't think he compares to a lot of the white guys we currently have or have had. He moves so well. He's so gifted as far as like his burst out of his breaks, his pure speed, and the way he separates it well. I think this is another guy that, yeah, he's probably not going to dominate one-on-one matchups all the time if he's, kind of asked to play big. But if you keep him as just say, hey, go be a separator, be our guy that probably is a number 2. Again, he doesn't have the pure size to be a pure X, be a pure number 1 that's going to take on cornerback 1s every week. But he can be so productive if you give him the opportunity. And him and Wilson kind of both fit that same mold of like number 2s, probably can move him around a lot, slot, outside, whatever. But they are always going to be open. They're always going to be guys that you can get the ball. And that's so important in today's day and age, because I was thinking about this too. We talk about like, this Jaden Daniels, greatest deep ball thrower in college right now. How often are deep balls happening in the NFL? Right? Like, Mahomes never gets to throw deep balls anymore. Like, one of the best deep ball throwers for a few years in the NFL scene with Tyreek Hill, we don't see him throw deep anymore. Like, that's not part of their offense. They need guys that can separate underneath and kind of play small ball. These two are perfect for that. Just like Malachi Corley, perfect for that underneath stuff, separating in a flash instead of we can wait for the play to develop and 5 seconds downfield, now you're open. That's not who these guys are, but I think they're kind of meant for today's NFL, and they could really boost their production up if given the opportunity.
Well, it's worth pointing out, too, that like 25 teams right now in the league are currently projected to be running a West Coast style offense next year. Yeah. Everybody has made this drastic shift to that West Coast.
Yeah.
Which has been wild to witness, but that's where we're at right now. And that's exactly the type of receiver that those offenses need, those 3 that we just brought up. Now, this is cheating a little bit. And
I want to hear your.
I already kind of mentioned him a little bit, but because I think he's going to be, he very well may be the first defensive tackle off the board. And that's why this is cheating on that question. But I absolutely loved Byron Murphy out of Texas. Defensive tackle, number 90, right there in that 6 foot, 300 range. You put on that tape and you just watch this guy play. And the skill set that he has, first off, as a true junior, the understanding that he has of how to use his hands and how to set himself up for success throughout the rep is unbelievable. The second thing that you kind of see is he's violent, he's sudden, and he's a much better athlete than anybody 300 pounds really is.
Yeah.
And, he starts moving and he starts kind of killing it. And you're just like this guy's he's legit. And we talked about, that, is there that defensive tackle in this class, that can kind of be that separator. We talked back, I think we did our big board a few months ago. Johnny Newton, he could be that guy. Yeah. But, this guy, Murphy, graded out a little bit higher for me than Newton did. Same. Because, he's got a much more complete skill set. He's very active as a pass rusher. Maybe the one thing that you kind of can say is he could close a little bit better in space. But once I think some more experience. He's his first year as a full-time starter. He's on the rotation his first 2 years at Texas.
Yeah.
I think a little more experience will help with that. And now we're talking about an elite athlete who has crazy violence in his hands and shades of Aaron Donald to his game.
Yeah, I hate the comps. Like we were just talking about, the lofty comps are crazy to me sometimes. But
on the report, I actually went Grady Jarrett. Does that make you feel better?
I was thinking Jarrett, or even because I think he's a little bendier than Jarrett.
Yeah,
and
Jarrett I think was like almost 315.
Yeah,
and Murphy's supposed to come in at 302.
Yeah, he's going to come in a lot. But I mean, that's Geno Atkins right there. Sorry, you dying over there, buddy?
Yeah, I know.
I think he's more like Geno Atkins, just the way that he can kind of, literally bend under and around blockers in the way that he doesn't have to be a pure. The thing I liked more about him than Johnny Newton, we talked about Newton in the past, and, we weren't overly high on him. We thought he's starting off maybe super high for us because we haven't studied a lot of players. And then as we, get more and more names, like he kind of will drop. And that's exactly what happened, I think, for both of us. Newton is that guy that I don't see the twitch and the pure strength. He kind of wins because he attacks a gap. And if the gap is not won right away, like he's a little stumped, or he kind of takes a bit to kind of reload and figure out his counters, where Byron Murphy is so twitched up. He can win that gap, or he can go right at you and kind of laterally make you miss. There's just a lot more options to his game. A lot more Geno Atkins style than I think Johnny Newton, who's gotten those comps, and I don't see that. I think he's more of a second. Who knows at the NFL? It's not the greatest defensive tackle class, but I think Newton could fall maybe late second, early third. Probably won't happen, but I think it's a possibility if he doesn't test well, and teams already weren't sold on some of the tape that he put out. But Byron Murphy feels like if you can get him moving, and if you can find the way to make him a productive player, because again, he's not going to be the best run stopper. He's not going to be a two gapper. There's ways that he can get blown up, probably just like Aaron Donald, though. But if you can get him coming up field and kind of get him to be kind of a specialty player, you're going to get a freak show and hopefully a productive player. We've seen Kalijah Cansey go in the first round. I'm trying to think who else. What other?
Loves Cansey.
Yeah, and honestly, Murphy is a lot better of a prospect than Cansey, in my opinion. So you're getting a guy that, just like Cansey, get him going in the right role, and holy crap, man, he's gonna explode. Do you have anybody that's not a first rounder that you think could end up being a top player at their position? I've got a controversial few, actually, if you don't mind. So I've got a quarterback, I've got a tackle, and I've got a safety. As far as quarterbacks go, I think a lot of these guys are kind of boom or bust. And so it's kind of Other than, I mean, even Caleb Williams is boomer bust, but Drake May, Jaden Daniels, Bone, like all the guys, everyone we've talked about. But Spencer Rattler, I come back to him every time. And I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and they were saying, look at Drake May versus Clemson, look at Spencer Rattler versus Clemson. Honestly, if you just watch those two games, you probably wouldn't know who teams ranked higher, other than you can tell one guy's taller. And so he probably has more prototypical size. But Rattler just feels a lot more natural at times playing the position, and you feel like he understands what the answers to the problem are going to be and how he's supposed to kind of solve it, versus Drake May sometimes felt uptight. Sometimes he felt stiff. Sometimes he felt rushed. Sometimes it was like he's scrambling, but you can tell it's kind of a panic mode, where Rattler just felt so chill all the time. Even in their head-to-head, it was like they dueled back and forth. And there was a lot of times where I felt the same way. Like Rattler just understands the quarterback position and so many of those little nuances he does so well. If he goes to the Vikings, the Rams, maybe even Denver, something like that, where he gets with a good offensive coordinator and a decent offensive mind and probably a decent offensive line that can actually protect him, unlike South Carolina. But we might see this guy take off. And, in a year or two, we're looking back at him just like, Brock Purdy, and saying like, why did he go so late? Like he does so many of the little things so naturally. So Rattler's
that's interesting. I have to pose this question just, because you brought up Rattler's potentially, long shot, but could be one of the best players of his position group in the NFL one day. You've been talking to a former NFL scout here lately.
Former NFL, that guy's going to look like a genius, man, if Rattler hits. And it's hilarious because, well, he probably won't look like a genius because his analysis is still hilarious and doesn't make any sense. But it's just going to be annoying to see that guy post on Twitter if Rattler ends up booming.
What was he? He changed it. He doesn't start every tweet with former NFL scout. Now it's
he's
former
versatile.
Pro personnel
who worked with Bill Walsh and
Bill Parcells in the New York Jets. Okay.
Yeah. All right, man.
All right,
Jets,
buddy.
Yeah. Well,
and look, that already tells you right there. I mean, like if you're working pro personnel, they're not letting you look at rookies.
Yeah. I mean, and I know some things about it. He was like, he did intern work. There was never a player personnel decision that man ever made in his life.
The other thing too about it was like, have you actually ever met anybody that could verify he worked for the Jets?
I haven't, but I know I don't want to just make this a bashing podcast, but I do know.
Well, I'm not trying to bash him, but I'm just saying,
I believe he did, but I believe, like I said, it was someone told me because they know him, and they just said, he just did like intern work. But
that could have been made up too.
Exactly. Well, who knows what that entails? But look,
there's no proof. Nobody remembers him. Nobody could tell you that he worked for the New York Jets other than that guy.
But I like watching him on Twitter, so I hope he never changes.
Oh, no, I muted him. I'm done. I'm just like, no, I don't even want to see it anymore.
Love it, man. Anyway, back to what we were talking about. I had two more names I'll run by you real quick. See what you think. Okay. Kalen Bullock from USC.
Okay.
Easily the rangiest player in this class. Interception machine. A true single high safety, but the man can't tackle. A lot of teams just ran over him and targeted him in the run game. But I mean, he does the one thing that we'd love to see out of defensive players, and he flips the field. He can create a turnover. He can cover the entire back. He doesn't need to be a split save. Like, this dude is rangy as hell. I don't know if it's a mindset thing or it's just incapability. It looks like a lot of mindset. Like he's not a physical player. Something can be screwed on a little differently in him, and he can find it in himself to be more physical and not be such a liability in the run game. I mean, this is a guy that's a scheme changer defensively, and that can really be that dude that, like Earl Thomas was for the Seahawks, where you put him back there. I mean, he is a killer for offenses, especially, if you can play single high and add an extra guy into the box, but still have the type of range that he brings. I mean, that's a big deal. The main reason a lot of those guys don't last is because they're, liabilities in the run game, and that's exactly what he is. But, like I said, if you fix that, this is a true center field safety that can really be I mean, he could be special. I just think and he'd be going a lot higher if he was bigger. His frame is not great, but if he was bigger, and he could tackle, boom. And Austin Booker, Mark Jarvis, brought him up to us a while back. The defensive end from Kansas. The guy's crazy for playing limited snaps. I mean, this dude.
Oh yeah, 1 year starter.
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty nuanced as a pass rusher, and as a defensive end. He's going to have to gain more weight, obviously. But I mean, I just look at him and I watch some of his snaps. And I'm like, he's doing things that a lot of college defensive ends cannot do, even in their third, fourth year. But he's setting up offensive tackles using a whole array of moves and has so much in his bag. Like, this dude could find himself, a Max Crosby type of career where third round, fourth round, because he comes out of Kansas, 1 year starter. And then, 3 years from now, he is feared by every NFL offense. And every primetime game, he's like the talk of the town on Twitter, whatever. This is that guy. So I don't know where he's going to go. I know he's just a test super well in Indy. I don't know if that's enough to really boost him even into the second round, but I'm just wondering how many teams can watch this type of film and see this type of frame and wingspan and get off and fluidity and say, like, yeah, we're gonna wait on him, or we're gonna pass and take somebody else. This is not that guy. I think this is a guy you kind of have to swing on early and just understand that, yeah, you got to get him in the NFL weight room. Yeah, you got to develop him a little bit overall as a player, but this kind of pass rush ability is pretty rare. So Jarvis found a good one, and and when I heard Kansas, I was like, nah. But
no, Lance Leopold has done a really good job with that program down there.
Yeah,
he really has.
Yeah, to get this guy out. I mean, the way he was as a 1 year starter, that's nuts. So, geez, him. And then I got to watch Renardo Green the other day, by the way, cornerback out of Florida State. I don't know if you've seen him, but I think
blew up the Shrine Bowl. Yeah, I saw him.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I think you've tweeted about him. He's good too. I mean, he is good. I don't think he's going to test crazy. I don't think he's going to do anything off the on paper that's going to make you think, wow. But his tape is nuts, and just the way that he can kind of see the future and run routes for players, run routes for the receivers, and kind of understand where the break points are going to be and what kind of tempo he needs to cover with. Because a lot of guys either cover too slow or too fast. And, as a receiver, you're kind of looking for that. You're looking for blind spots. You're looking for stride length. You're looking for a lot of tells that cornerbacks have. That way you can kind of get them off balance. That's what Justin Jefferson's the best at. Is, really understanding how to play your strengths against you. This dude is so good about that, like disguising his own coverage, making sure you can't just shake him with a head fake or with a quick accelerate, quick few steps where you accelerate. He's not that guy. I know the LSU boys just couldn't lose him. And he doesn't look elite doing it. He doesn't look like a freak, but I think he's just such a good, solid cover dude. And he's so nuanced at the position. He's another one where, again, down the road,
you're thinking he could be really,
yeah. You're like, oh, that's a top player on his team. Like, that's insane. So
I could see it.
I don't know where he's going to go in the draft. Maybe second, third round. I'm not sure, but
he's probably more like third. Probably more like third right now.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah,
but we'll see, because the combine's going to kind of do a lot of this picking up. We got a couple minutes here, Justin. You were talking about doing boom or bust, right?
Yeah, I wanted to hear from you. See who you kind of. Because these names are always interesting. Some people will say, like, how could you think he'll bust? How could you think, like, and I think there's a lot more nuance that goes into this whole scouting thing than we talk about sometimes. So I wanted to hear some names from you. Yeah.
Okay. So you want names from me. You don't have the names.
I got names myself. I just wanted to hear maybe a few, or maybe I'll give you a few and you can tell me what you think. Because these are some of my top guys that I'm like, as far as receivers go, I thought Troy Franklin and Xavier Worthy were both worthy of this list. Troy Franklin, he kind of struggles to catch the ball. Straight up struggles to catch the ball. His frame is small. He doesn't track as well as you think a speed guy would. So I think, the boom side of him is no one that's 6'3" should be that fast, that fluid, move that well. And actually kind of separates really well. He really does. But can he catch the ball consistently, or are we looking at Marquez Valdez-Scantling? Xavier Worthy is probably a Marquise Brown type. Again, struggles to catch the ball. Slender frame. Probably don't want him working over the middle, but I mean, is this Deshaun Jackson or is this John Ross? Which is it? Because he's also amazing after the catch. So it's like, as an offense, both these guys are probably guys you don't want working over the middle. You don't want them to be the chain movers. You don't want them reeling in tough catches. But if you can get them out of that role altogether and say, go be Deshaun Jackson or go be our pure deep threat, you might be looking at guys that light up the NFL.
I'll go with the tackle that comes to mind. I'll start there. Marius Mims. I mean,
yeah, I had him on my list too.
Physical, just has all the measurements that you could possibly want. Just looks like an NFL player as soon as you see him. But you start watching his tape, and he's so unpolished. He's so unpolished, and you're going, oh, but you got 8 starts in two years, like
in the SEC.
That's a little
not.
Yeah, it's not like we're sitting here going, oh well, you this and that. You got injuries. You've got all these different things on top of that we've got to figure out with you. Like that is a huge boom bust.
Straight up experience. Yeah.
The other one, I'm trying not to be too obvious here, so I got to kind of think a little bit. Let's go with Kool-Aid McKinstry out of Alabama. Yeah, because when we came into the draft cycle, he was the top talked about corner. Everybody was saying, "Oh, he's the corner number 1." Well, he wasn't even the best corner on his team this year. That was Terry Arnold. Yeah. And now Arnold's the cornerback 1, and we're talking about 3 or 4 guys going before Kool-Aid. Yeah. As the media starts to kind of catch up to the NFL. So what it is you got these agents and people that work with media people, and they put out these names early to get people start talking about them, like before the draft, before they're entering is over. So they started getting these media people start talking about Kool-Aid back before the 2023 NFL draft.
Plus a cool name, so.
It really is. He was a catchy high school because it was him and it was DeColdis Crawford that came out in the same class.
Yeah, DeColdis, I remember that.
DeColdis, yeah, and he's at Louisiana Tech now. But anyways, point being, Gam, is that when you look at a guy like that, he's definitely has some decent size. He definitely has some decent athletic traits. But is he reactive enough? Is he going to be able to stay in the hip pocket? Or is he really going to be limited to this, match 4 type system where that's where he's going to have to operate out of? I don't know. Terry Arnold, I feel a lot better about.
Yeah. Yeah, Terry Arnold, I think I've thrown on the comp Stephon Gilmore. He looks like a true number 1, someone that you can actually have shadow true number 1 receivers. Might not be perfect, but I mean, there's a lot of Gilmore to his game.
Yeah, I can see it.
Two more DBs real quick that I had. Nate Wiggins from Clemson. Yeah, Nate Wiggins from Clemson reminds me way too much of Justin Gilbert. Just living in recovery mode, living off speed and size. But it's like there's no nuance to this kid's game. It's just he's covering you, but he kind of isn't doing anything right. Like he's just being an athlete, and it's kind of working. But he's also not
working in the ACC.
Yeah, and he's also not physical. Like I don't really see dog in this guy. So I'm like, I wonder if we get to the NFL. If he's really willing to
CJ Henderson.
Yeah, exactly. And then I hate to say his name, Cooper DeJean, and I think he's more of a boomer bust just based off the fact that you got to understand what he is. Just like Minkah Fitzpatrick coming out of Bama, Flores tried to make him a weird nickel corner, whatever. That didn't work out. It was awful. And we were like, what's wrong with Minkah Fitzpatrick? You look good at Alabama. What the hell? Move him to pure free safety. All right, maybe he might be the best pure safety in the game. Cooper DeJean's kind of the same way. I don't see a pure man-to-man shutdown corner. No. He's tight. He has, he's not oily in transition. If you ask him to be your number 1 corner because you draft him super high, you're not going to have a fun time, and neither is he. So I think this is a dude that's probably a strong safety that you can keep in the box, kind of cover tight ends, or hell, maybe he's your actual free safety and he's rangy enough and can get his hands on enough balls to kind of make that worth it. But I think he's a safety. I don't think he's a corner, and I don't like that because he was so hyped up early. Now people are kind of hesitant to say, oh, he can't play corner. Like, just get it right. Don't be first. Don't be against the echo chamber. Just be right. And I don't think the right thing is putting him at cornerback. So I think, we see him taking top 15, and then some team sticks him at corner. I know you and I are going to be like, shit.
Oh no.
Yeah. Great.
I don't think he's going to go top 15 just because of the injury.
I agree.
But I've been right there with you banging that horn. And, I think I said that a couple months ago on Twitter where, I think he's a safety. He's not a corner, and that it's just how it is. You got a kid that is so athletic. He is crazy gifted. Return specialist. He will make people miss. He'll do
jump out of the gym.
Things. Yeah. And if he were to be able to test, I mean, he would kill it. It'd be amazing. Yeah. But there is a different type of, athletic ability that's required to play corner, and that's to be reactive, to have that kind of control over your body and your mind and being connected to that same point, so that when you see something, you just got that instinct or whatever it is to make those cues and react accordingly. And, when you're playing safety, it's a lot easier to have time to make up for any lack of reflex than at corner, when you're in man coverage and trying to stay with a guy breaking a 90, degree in cut.
Yeah. You can be linear and play safety. You cannot be linear and play corner.
No. And he's even in a match 4 system, it doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, but no, so I think he's a safety. I think he's going to be a good one, but
I think he'd be a great safety.
Play him there.
Harrison Smith type safety, be in the league for a long time. He could be a downhill, hitter. Yeah. He'll just have more athletic ability, more upside in the return game.
Indeed.
And I think you can't take him off the field if you need a kick return or punt return. You don't put somebody else out there. Put him out there.
Yeah,
he's going to make stuff happen.
Cannot afford to get him hurt or something. But yeah, I mean, he's dynamic as hell. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens. Wish you could test.
I think that's about it here, man. I think we've about wrapped up the show. We're going to be back at it later this week. Jarvis should be joining us after getting back. From the combine. He was actually texted us while recording. That's why I was looking distracted while you're talking about your safety.
What's he saying?
All right,
trust him.
We'll talk about it. Right. But yeah, for Justin Gamble and John Vogel, we'll be back at it later this week on the Sick Podcast. And get us out of here, Shane.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Draft Vogel on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.